Greetings YouTube, and welcome to Tristan's Guide to Solar Astronomy. My name is Tristan Schwartz. I go by Zamboni on the Cloudy Nights forums. I've been an amateur astronomer for about 20 years, and I'm currently a member of the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. Over the last few years, I've been getting very heavily into solar astronomy, and I have discovered that there isn't a lot of good information out there on YouTube for people interested in beginning in solar astronomy. A lot of the information that is out there is geared towards people who are either already experienced or tutorials on astroimaging, and then a lot of just flat out wrong information. And overall, a lot of the information that I've found in terms of understanding how different types of filters or like hydrogen alpha scopes work is mainly geared towards people who already have experience in how these things work. A lot of this was driven home to me a couple of weeks ago. I read some very alarming reports from the 2013 Northeast Astronomy Forum's Solar Star Party. They had volunteers running the equipment and giving out a lot of factually inaccurate information about how the equipment worked and what the equipment was. Apparently, one of the volunteers was telling people that a Herschel wedge was used for hydrogen alpha observations, which is not correct. Now, if you're doing nighttime astronomy demonstrations and you give out one or two bits of iffy information on how a telescope works, that's not going to ruin anyone's day, but with solar astronomy, there is a fundamental element of danger. Solar astronomy and solar observation is fundamentally dangerous. And if you give somebody the wrong information about how equipment works or how to use equipment or even what the equipment is, you could wind up causing somebody to go blind, and that's not good. So I wanted to start this video series as a way of getting the correct information out there in one easy to access series. Now, before we go any further with these videos, I'd like to remind everybody that unless you have the proper equipment and you know what you're doing, never look at the sun through a telescope. Using makeshift equipment, or I should say makeshift materials like welder's glass or dark exposed photographic film, is really dangerous. It can be passing dangerous levels of IR and UV. Even if visibly the view is dim, it can still be passing dangerous levels of infrared and UV radiation that can fry your eyeballs and you're not even realizing it because it doesn't cause any pain when that happens. So if you're going to make your own solar filters, only use material that is specifically for visual solar observation. Don't use photographic density solar filter films, only use visual solar filter material. Also, never use older types of solar filters that kind of came with like old Unitron and Tasco refractors that are an eyepiece filter that screws into the eyepiece. Don't use those. Those can crack under intense heat at the focal point of the telescope. And once a little bit of light comes in, your eyeball's gone. So don't use those. Only use professionally made filter materials that are specifically for solar astronomy or dedicated solar telescopes. Now, along the way, through the course of these videos, I'm going to be discussing not only, the materials themselves, the equipment that you want to use for doing solar observations, but also the history of how these types of equipment were developed over time, and get an understanding of how the hobby has developed. It used to be just a few short years ago that solar observing was a really niche corner of the hobby, and now it's pretty mainstream. So it's been growing, and it's time for there to be some clear information for beginners on solar observing. Now, until you are comfortable with the techniques and the equipment, don't attempt any solar observations. Luckily, the learning curve is fairly short, and these videos should prepare you with all the information that you need. But, again, proceed at your own risk. Solar astronomy is dangerous if you don't do it right. Now, after the equipment series, I'm going to start in on a series that will teach you to identify what you're seeing through a solar filter or through a hydrogen alpha filter, and learn to understand and identify different solar features that you would see on the sun, and also how to classify sunspots, which is a big thing if you're a member of the Astronomical League and want to go for the Sunspotter Award, which is a very rewarding observing program. One other thing is this series isn't going to go into solar imaging. This is going to be primarily based on visual solar astronomy. And we aren't going to go into calcium K-line filters because those are primarily for imaging and can also be hazardous for visual use because of the amount of UV radiation that they can pass. So if you're interested in visual solar observations and you want to get into this very rewarding and addictive branch of amateur astronomy, then sit back, relax, and enjoy Tristan's Guide to Solar Astronomy.